Microfocus, creators of visual programming tools for software development, is pleased to provide major funding for the Computer Chronicles, the story of this continuing evolution.
Gary, what I have here is a ROM chip in this cartridge, and I'm going to take this ROM chip and stick it inside this machine and load it in there and press a couple of buttons, and if everything works according to plan, this is an example of computer music, and computer music is our subject today. This little RAM pack, which I have over here, has 15 songs on it. Matter of fact, there's a ROM Chip of the Month Club now where you can buy your popular songs on a chip instead of on a cassette tape or on a record. This is a simple example, but how does a computer make music? How is it doing this?
This is a very special device. It's not a general purpose computer. And what you do is you write a program, and it's going to be interesting today, I think, because we'll have some real experts that will tell us all about it.
First, let's go across the country to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and a visit to MIT's Experimental Music Studio. Specially developed music languages translate the sound processing as specified by the composer. From this input, a digital data stream is computed. Finally, the digital form is translated into a signal for amplification, pre-recorded, and played back over audio tape during the performance. To achieve this kind of instantaneous but programmed manipulation requires very high-speed computers capable of several 100 million calculations per second. Okay, joining us now is Will Harvey. Will created Music Instruction Set, a hot piece of software being offered by Electronic Arts right now. And John Chowning. John is director of Stanford's Center for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics. Did I get that right?
You know, I was just going to mention, I think with that Casio tone, I finally found an instrument that I can play.
I think we have some more here.
Right. Where are we at today?
Well, it's, I guess, and what's happened in the recent years, which is evident in things like personal computers, and that is large-scale integration. We're getting more and more power in smaller and smaller units, which means that what was once in the lab now can be put in concert hall or into smaller environments.
Computers and music is somehow wrong, and somehow depersonalizing composition and creativity. What role really does the computer play in computer music?
Computer, of course, being based upon programming languages, is really an access, I think, to a mode of thought or a body of thought that really represents, I guess, tens of thousands of man-years of thought about thought. And I think that's the significant difference between computers and music and electronic musical instruments. Look what Will's done here with a personal computer and a programming language and a considerable amount of imagination.
Will, you guys are different ends a bit. John is working at Stanford with a big mini and a complex operation, and you're selling a $40 software.
Well, I think computers are a way that people can be introduced to music. And with this program, what we tried to do is allow a person who doesn't know anything about music and who might be intimidated even by it to go out and to fool around with music already created, or to create his own, and be able to do everything just with a joystick.
Maybe you can show us a little bit about how a Music Instruction Set works.
That hand represents your hand. So in order to create music, what you do is you move your hand around and you pick up notes and you set them on the staff, what you see there. The pictures do things, and press the button, it'll play through the piece. With this, you can move your hand around, pick up a note, move it somewhere else, and drop it. Instead of having to learn to play an instrument, you have to learn to use a joystick, which isn't all that difficult. Whenever they see a new computer program is to be overly cautious. So they'll move around the hand and be very careful not to move a note too far, this or that. But it doesn't take too long, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, before they realize, hey, this is fun, I'm not going to kill myself. The instruction manual tells you what the staff is and some of the basic music notations. I'm pointing to that note, and I could say, well, what am I pointing to right now? And press P, which is a novel idea.
John, briefly, how would that compare with the kinds of things you're doing at Stanford?
Perhaps later we can talk a bit about that. But I find this very interesting. That's good.
Okay. In just a moment, we're going to take a look at a reasonably sophisticated device which you can plug into your computer.
Ellen, what you have here seems to be somewhat different from Will's previous demonstration. How does what you're doing differ from the music instruction set?
Well, we're both in the music business, and we're both, in fact, using computers to do things that are musical. What I'm looking at on the screen here is a list of albums. Just as I have a 45 RPM record on my player, or 33, so I have a diskette. It goes into my disk drive. And now when I do a directory or catalog, I can see the list of songs I have previously recorded or someone else recorded loaded in. Why don't we listen to Jesu? I can see the parts that were played. Now that's a fairly complex piece.
That sounds like segue music, Ellen, and I'm going to take advantage of that music to turn to John for a second.
Well, it's an extension of the same idea, and I guess demonstrates what one can do with an enormous amount of effort and over a large number of years. Eliminates all the problems of error making in music publishing. So it's a contribution of considerable importance, I think, in the music industry. The same basic ideas, but reaching a very high degree of refinement.
John, okay, you've brought with you an audio tape from your system at Stanford. We're going to play that tape right now, and if you can put on the headset so that you can hear it as we play it, and tell us what's going on in this audio tape.
Okay, this is an example of high-quality vocal synthesis using frequency modulation synthesis. It took me about 6 months to find the little cues for naturalness that seem to be so very often lacking in most electronic music synthesis. Now, having worked out this algorithm, we can play the next example and hear an extension of nature into a slightly unreal domain. For example, I've modeled now the human voice, but of a very, very large man. So it's deeper than any real human being could sing, as if he had a 6-foot chest, I guess, and a 3-foot neck. So the vocal resonance is amplified because we have this independent control over the dimensions of sound in its abstract form. By doing a vast amount of research and analysis in psychoacoustics and signal processing, we can extend to this miniaturization which we see a kind of quality of sound which I think will be a very great improvement.
Ellen, you mentioned earlier the concept of your floppy disk as a kind of record album with titles on it. We saw at the beginning of the program this kind of ROM cartridge. Do you see a kind of new form of music publishing in which you would buy floppy disks for a computer playback system?
Absolutely.
I think there's very little resistance, especially in the young generation. After all, people the age of, is it Will, the young man, well, I mean, he's already beat the hurdle, you see. He already understands a great deal about programming because these things are in the environment, and that's good.
Okay.